Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. As you can tell by the title of the video, today we are going to be talking about all of the films nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars this year. I have previously done a video about all the Best Film nominees at the BAFTAs, and sometime earlier this week I was scrolling around on Reddit, as you do, you know, at 2 o'clock in the morning when you should be sleeping, but you've somehow been sucked into a Reddit rabbit hole, and I came across a post of somebody asking people to give their predictions about the Oscar nominations this year, and they linked a picture that the New York Times has made with all of the names of the nominees in each category and everything on it, and essentially you were meant to circle your predictions for who's going to win or who you think should win. And so it got me thinking. I was not really planning on doing this again anytime soon, but I thought since I made a video about the BAFTAs nominees, I could just as well do the same for the Oscars. The list of nominees for the Oscars is fairly similar to that of the BAFTAs, but there are a couple of films on it that I haven't seen yet, so I thought I could do that. I will read you the list of all the nominees, and then I will go and watch the films that I haven't seen yet, come back, talk to you about all of the films, and then give you my predictions for who I think will win, who I think should win, and who I think could win. I think that's the same as what I did in the previous video, so we're going to do that again. So, as for nominees for Best Picture, in alphabetical order is are Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Emilia Pèrez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, and Wicked. Now, out of these nominees, the only ones I haven't seen yet are The Brutalist, I'm Still Here, and Nickel Boys. All of the rest I've already seen because they were on the BAFTAs list, so I've already seen them all, so I don't need to watch them again. Some of them I don't want to watch again, and others I have seen recently enough to still know what my thoughts about them were. So I'm going to go and watch those 3 films, and then I will come back to you with my thoughts, and we will talk about predictions and all of the rest of it. Hello again, I'm back. I have watched all 3 of the films that I hadn't seen yet from the list, and now it's my time to give you a quick rundown of them all. So I'm going to do a very brief summary of the how many 7 or so that I hadn't, or that I had already watched previously for the BAFTAs video, because I go into a lot more detail about them in the BAFTAs video. So if you want to see me yap on for a long time about those specific films, I would suggest you watch that video, but I'm gonna try and keep it brief for this one. So I'm gonna go alphabetically down the list, but I'm gonna keep the 3 that I have recently watched for the end because I have a little bit more to say about them. So first off, Anora was a brilliantly made film. It is such a good film and so well portrayed, but it is absolute and utter chaos, but it is so much fun. So I would suggest watching it. There are a few films on this list that I wouldn't necessarily recommend watching, but Anora is one that I can wholeheartedly say I think the majority of people should watch it and probably would enjoy it. Then, sorry, I have to look at my phone to see the list. And the next one we have is A Complete Unknown. I don't really have much to say about this film because I honestly would not have I wouldn't have watched this film if it hadn't have been on both the Oscars and BAFTAs list. I'm not at all a Bob Dylan fan, so if it hadn't have been for me challenging myself to watch all of the films on the best films list, I wouldn't have seen this film. That said, I think it is a good portrayal of Bob Dylan. There are still biopics that I've seen that I prefer and that I think were made better than this one, but for Bob Dylan fans, I think you would really enjoy it, because I think it is a very good insight into his life and the early years of him coming up, and kind of what he's like as a songwriter, which is, I think, a good thing to focus on, because at the end of the day, I think he is most remembered for being a really good songwriter, which he is. It's just too bad that he didn't have the voice to go along with it. Otherwise, I probably would have liked him more, to be honest. Then next up we have Conclave. I cannot say enough good things about this film. I'm so glad it won the BAFTA for Best Film. I'm so just enthralled by that film, and there are so many people that don't like it, and I don't understand why, because I think it is such a well-made film. And one of the things that I was thinking while watching it, and I think I mentioned this in my BAFTAs video as well, is that it feels like nothing is wasted. There's nothing in this film that you feel they could have left that out. Didn't need to be in this film, which is really lovely. And before I sound like a fangirl here, I'm gonna shut up about it, but it's one of the best films I've seen in a really long time, and it's definitely one of the best films I've seen this year. And I think it was very deserving of its win at the BAFTAs. Then we have Dune Part 2, obviously a very epic film and very big, and there was so much work that went into this film. But in my opinion, it was too long, and I enjoyed the first one better. I enjoyed Part 1 the most. I mean, I've only seen these two. I've never seen any of the previous iterations, and I have not read the book. But to be honest, watching the films, it does not make me want to read the book, first of all. And secondly, I didn't enjoy the second installment as much as the first one. Then we have Emilia Pèrez. People really don't like this film, and I kind of get it, but I also don't really. I know there are a lot of people who are from Mexico, and a lot of trans people who have issue with this film, or who have taken issue with this film, because they say it's not really an accurate portrayal of what being a trans person is like, or what Mexican culture is like. So I can't comment on those two things, because I have no experience with either of them. But from a musical standpoint, and I am not someone who likes musicals, I say that, but that I've seen quite a lot of musicals for someone who doesn't like musicals, but I don't like the concept of a musical. The thing that where people are just talking and then will suddenly burst into song in the middle of their sentence, and usually it's a very cheesy song that follows. That just, I don't gel with that. But this was, in my opinion, an interesting take on a musical, because to me the musical numbers were different, and it was as if the conversation was just continuing in this kind of singing, rapping, not really, but talking fashion, which I thought worked quite well. But I know the majority of people did not like this film. Then the next one is The Substance. Man, what a weird film. I did not particularly enjoy this film. I'm not somebody who enjoys body horror and anything in that kind of genre, so this was not the film for me. I do recognize that it is a very or the message of the film was actually, if you think about it, very well portrayed, and I think it's a very important message that the director and writer and everything were trying to convey. It just wasn't for me. But I can concede that it did its job. It did what it set out to do, to be quite frank. So I'll give it that. Next up we have Wicked, which is another musical, which also already gives it kind of a demarcation in my books just because I don't fancy musicals that much. But I said this in my BAFTAs video as well. You could just wait for the next installment of this film series to come out and watch that one, and you would not have lost a lot of information by not watching the first one, because not a lot happens in the first film. Not a lot, really. Most of the story of what you expect Wicked to be about, like how did the Wicked Witch of the East, I never remember. How did the Wicked Witch become the Wicked Witch? Not a lot of that was explored. I would say the first half an hour of this film is useful in terms of that, but the rest of it you could just skip and wait for the next installment to come out and then continue on from there. Then, now we have arrived at the 3 films that I had not seen prior to starting this video. The Brutalist. I don't really get the hype behind this film. I don't really understand the hype. To me, it was an okay film. It's about an architect who left Hungary just after the end or around the end of the Second World War, moved to the US to start a new life and started working there. And eventually got his wife and niece over from Hungary as well to join him in the end. But I don't know. I don't really know what to say about this film, other than it was an incredibly long film. It's 3 hours and 21 minutes and some seconds long. That is, I think, as long as the second Godfather film. And I did not even finish the Godfather film, the second one. I don't know. I don't really get this film. I don't know what to say about this film because I don't have any feelings about it really. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. So to me it's just a middling film, and by the end of the film, the end of the film is so abrupt. Before they have like the little epilogue segment, there's a little epilogue at the end, but the end of the main film is so abrupt that you kind of are left thinking, okay, and what now? Yes, and what happens after this? And yeah, I don't know. I really don't know what else to say other than I don't get the hype. It's a beautiful film. It's beautifully made. Obviously, it features a lot of architecture due to the nature of the main character. And I must say, Adrien Brody and Felicity Jones did a fantastic job of acting their roles. I think that they are deserving of Best Actor and Best Supporting Actress. Hopefully they do win that at the Oscars, because I know Felicity Jones didn't win at the BAFTAs, but Adrien Brody did. So I do hope that they win, because I think of all the films that I've seen, they have done some of the best acting. The rest of the cast, though, not my cup of tea. And also especially at the start of the film, a lot of the dialogue feels really clunky, and I don't know, it doesn't flow as well as I would have liked it to. But anyway, before I nitpick apart this entire film, let me move on to my next film, which I'm excited to talk about because it was brilliant. It is I'm Still Here, or in Portuguese, it would be Ainda, Estou, Aqui, or something like that. I know my Portuguese. Please don't listen to my accent, because I don't speak Portuguese. But this was such a brilliant film. This was just a really beautifully made film with a great story to tell. This story is also based on real people and real events that happened to these people. and all of the actors portrayed their roles so beautifully, and it's just such a refreshing film to watch. This is why, this is a prime example of why I feel like often films from I think at the Oscars they call them international features, or another way to call it would be a foreign language film. So films that are not from the US or from the UK, so basically not English films, are so much better, in my opinion. Often there are so many examples of films that I've seen that are made in France or Brazil, Sweden, Italy, anywhere, that are so brilliant and just better than English films. And this is another prime example because it is such a good story and it's so well told, but without belaboring the point and kind of victimizing the people who the story are about. And what I really found so lovely is that even though this is quite a tragic story and so many of the characters go through a traumatic experience throughout the film, there's still so much joy that they show and that they find in their lives. And I don't know if that's just how Brazilian people are. I only know one Brazilian person and he kind of is like that, so, or at least from what I've seen. So I don't know if that's just their culture or if that's just extra highlighted in this film, but it's such a beautiful film, and I would implore everyone to go and watch this film, please. It does have subtitles, so you don't need to worry about not being able to understand it because you don't speak Portuguese. It has subtitles, but if you this film has just made me really happy and just made me fall in love with films again, which is great. I love it when you find a film where you're like, yes, this is it. This is what films should be about. Then, the last one on my list is Nickel Boys. I tried to read the book by Colson Whitehead in early 2020. I didn't finish it because I had to give it back to the library before. I didn't finish it in the time period that I was allotted, the 2 weeks that I had, I think, to read it. So I had to give it back. But honestly, I wasn't going to finish it anyway, even if I had as much time as I wanted, because I just couldn't get into the story. It didn't grab me. And the film is kind of the same. If I wasn't making this video, to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't have watched the whole film. But because I was watching this, or making this video, I did. I watched the whole film. I made myself sit through the whole thing. And it is a really good story, and it is a really important story, and honestly, it could have been so much more impactful if they had just portrayed it in a different way. If they had just, given it to you on a different platter. Because this film is mostly, I think, I'd say 99% of the time, it is shot from first-person perspective. So the main character, plural, because you kind of see the perspective of two people. But mostly there's one main character whose perspective you're seeing from. So it's essentially as if that person was carrying a camera on their forehead and just looking around. And that's what you see. So you're seeing what the main character is seeing, and then the secondary character, who you also get to see from their perspective at some points. And I'm sure there was a very good reason why the director chose to do it this way, but I do think it did the film a disservice, because it is so disconcerting at the beginning and really difficult to get to, emotionally invest in the character that you're supposed to be watching, because you don't see him until, I don't know, probably half an hour into the film or so, maybe 20 minutes into the film, when he meets the other character whose perspective you then see some things from. So I think the way that they decided to portray this film did it a disservice, because I think there are so many people who are not going to finish watching this film because of the first person perspective of it, because it is not easy or entertaining or enjoyable to watch it in that way. There are probably some people who really enjoyed that and found it really refreshing, and I do think it is a very interesting way to make a film. But I don't know, I feel like it would have benefited from having a third person perspective as well. They could have kept the first person perspective, but it would have been nice to have that third person omniscient kind of perspective on the story as well. Pardon the change of lighting and angle probably. My battery died, so I had to charge it before I could continue. But what I was busy saying, or what I think I remember I was busy saying, was that I think Nickel Boys could have benefited from having an omniscient third-person perspective, especially when the two first-person perspective characters were interacting with each other. Sometimes the first-person perspective really worked for that interaction, but other times I felt like it would have been nicer to have seen them from an outside perspective. But all that said, now we get on to the part where I get to just tell you who I think should win, and it's pretty obvious at this point, I think, because there's only 2 films on this list that I've really said that I've loved, and in a perfect world, I'm Still Here would win Best Picture. In a perfect world. But I also do have to keep in mind that the Oscars is as much kind of a beauty pageant of the film world, and a popularity contest in as well as just a film awards show. So it is very possible that The Brutalist could win, because it has been very popular with many people, and it did really well at the BAFTAs despite not winning Best Film. I also think Conclave has a very good chance of winning again, because it did win at the BAFTAs and it is a really good film. And if the Oscars people have any sense, they would probably pick the Conclave. The Conclave? Wow. Pick Conclave above The Brutalist. But in my heart, I'm Still Here has won an Oscar, because I think it is the most deserving of all the films on this list. And I think Fernanda Torres, the leading actress in I'm Still Here, should win Best Actress in comparison with everybody else on that list. She did, I think, the best job. If she doesn't win, then it should be Mikey Madison from Anora, because she also did a fantastic job, and she did win at the BAFTAs. She won Best Actress at the BAFTAs. Or Best Leading Actress. But I really want I'm Still Here and Fernanda Torres to win, because I think they are so deserving of those awards, and for people to recognize it, and for the film to get more recognition, and maybe for that part of Brazil's history to become more widely known by the public, and for Fernanda to get more recognition for the brilliant work that she's done. So I would love for that to be the case. A kind of wild card who might win, because, as I said, it is kind of a popularity contest, would be Wicked. It could well be that Wicked ends up winning Best Picture, and that Cynthia Erivo ends up winning Best Actress. Which, I mean, I'm not going to be mad if she wins, because I think she's a brilliant actress. I don't necessarily think that this is the role that she should be winning for. I think there are other roles that she has portrayed and that she will portray in future that I think would probably be more deserving. But You know, anything's possible at the Oscars. I feel like the Oscars is kind of the most unserious of all of the film awards, because I feel like the BAFTAs, the people have integrity and they care about the categories themselves. They care about best film, meaning the film that is the best, not the film that is good but also really popular with other people and had an impact across the world, etc., etc. I feel like they judge more based on the actual parameters of each category, whereas the Oscars take more things into consideration, I think. Popularity being one of those things. So that's just my 2 cents. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I've been doing a lot of film content lately. I will get back to doing some more bookish content for you in the coming weeks, so I hope you have enjoyed this little trip down film lane. I will be making more film content in the future, obviously. I'm not sure when, but sometime in the future, and until then, I will bid you adieu, and I hope you enjoy your coming week. I hope you enjoy watching the Oscars tomorrow if you are watching them, and if not, then you just live in blissful ignorance, which is probably the best thing to do, to be honest. So, cheers.